We love whiskey with all our heart, but not as much as Kristopher Hart, who's our guest on this episode of Texas Whiskey.
That's all you could come up.
Welcome to this episode of Texas Whiskey. My name is Jimmy Hayes Nelson, a.k.a. Coach Jimmy. To my right, as always, is the doctor, Dr. Nico Martini. What's up, man?
Hey, buddy. How's it going?
It's good to see you.
I thought it was Jimmy Dad Joke Nelson.
Oh, I don't know. Some of these intros, it's whatever I can come up with from my place up the tollway. That's kind of where I start working on these.
You spend minutes preparing for these shows.
I spend hours on show prep on the guest, minutes on what my intro is going to be. I want to keep these things fresh and cheesy.
His last name is Hart. I have an idea.
Well, and Kristopher, thanks for being here, man. If I tried to do anything about his resume or bio, we have so many things to talk about with you today. As I was doing, I think obviously you and Nico have known each other for a while, so I'm a little bit new to your world. And as I was doing research, I was like, oh, where do we start? So we're going to get to you in just one second. We usually start the show with me asking Nico, what are we drinking today?
But I know what we're drinking now.
But you've given me the right to get to pour today.
I picked up the bottle for you.
So this was a bottle that was my bottle that Nico nicely went and picked up in Austin. That is the Still Austin New Straight Wheat Whiskey.
Wheat whiskey.
100% wheat whiskey. And you were so excited about this, I'm going to let you have the first pour out of this.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
Just because, I'm nice like that.
Looking forward to it.
Do you want to tell us something about this that I probably don't know?
This is a 100% wheat offering from Still Austin. Not a lot of people make wheat, man. We have a couple in Texas. Lone Elm makes some fantastic wheat whiskey. Banner makes some really good wheat whiskey.
Right.
As far as I know, this is the only other wheat whiskey that we've got. I'm sure there's lots of people working on lots of things, but as far as I know, wheat whiskey is not common. So it's not bourbon. It's wheat.
It's wheat. Yes, we've had I remember on the Lone Elm episode that you guys can go back and watch. We talked extensively about that, but we do wheat well here in Texas. So hopefully we start seeing more of this as well.
Oh, that's fantastic.
It make you happy?
Yeah, that's lovely. Yeah, it's really soft. It's really approachable. It's not. The thing that I like about wheat whiskey is that, and this kind of goes over to wheated bourbon. It kind of softens everything up, and it just kind of makes it a little bit more palatable. It's a lot. This is sort of like really high quality intro whiskey to me, as far as somebody trying to get their palate to the point that they can drink whiskey neat or whatever. So,
yeah.
Speaking of whiskey neat.
Oh, that was a good segue.
No, that's a segue.
Nico wins. His intro was way better than mine. I'm losing my job here as the MC of this thing. Help me welcome Kristopher Hart to the show. How are you, sir?
I'm great. Can you guys hear me good? See me good? Whole 9 yards?
We got you.
Looking
We're good.
fantastic as the host of the Whiskey Neat show. In fact, I was asking Nico, an amazing show, such an extensive guest list. Would you call your show, is it a radio show? Is it a podcast? Is it a YouTube show? Because you can find these things everywhere.
Or is it just an experience?
Is it an experience?
It's an experience. Yeah, no. So, I guess it depends. I don't like the word podcast.
Yeah.
I feel like it when you use the word podcast and you're not Joe Rogan, it makes it very hard to pitch or to talk about with, even ad sponsors or guests, this in a similar vein, we've approached a few women to do the show, but the moment you mention ESPN and whiskey, a lot of them, Betty White couldn't have passed faster.
See, I totally thought she would be down to have some whiskey. So, okay. So, you have, I was going through and I was going through the YouTube channel and watch because the same thing with this show. People can watch this show or listen to this show. And I'm one that tends to watch, even if it's just interviews. I would rather watch the people having the interview.
It's funny because I feel like I drive so much. You're
a listening guy.
I'm all in on podcasts. Like, absolutely.
So you have this amazingly extensive list of people like Matthew McConaughey and William H. Macy and people from The Office, and my favorite, the Pauly Shore episode. Where did this thing start? Because obviously you didn't start this show talking to McConaughey. So can you tell us a little bit of the origins of this show and then kind of what it's grown into from what it started as?
Oh, it's so funny you bring up Pauly Shore. It's the night before that episode happened, uh, he got my cell phone number, I guess, from his publicist, and I was standing in my living room talking about the show and kind of what he wanted to talk about, kind of preparing for the interview. And I remember getting off the phone and thinking, I just stood in my living room for 20 minutes talking on the cell with Pauly Shore. This is the most surreal and bizarre, and life's got to be a simulation scenario. But to answer your question, so the show, the original idea, this was back before Hot Ones is what it is now. I love the idea of filming a lot like, imagine Anthony Bourdain, but more cocktail focused or distillery focused, and sitting down and drinking spirits with guests. But it's hard because when you talk about wanting to get, ad revenue and stuff to kind of pay for traveling and filming these things,
sure,
you run into some issues with, the idea of the original pitch was killing a bottle over an evening, which is very easy to do. Like if you have 6 people, you're sitting around a table and you just focus on one bottle, then you could kill a bottle in an evening responsibly, but that pitch doesn't sound good, and it sets off all these red alarms. So we had to change the show, augment the show, and to slowly build the guest list. I mean, the first person that really said yes was Aiden English, or Matt Raywalt, who was a WWE wrestler.
Awesome.
And then it led to TJ Miller, and TJ Miller led to Dolph Lundgren. And it was just like, oh, okay. It was just a slow build of guests that said yes. And over time, it just became easier and easier just to talk to strangers, especially someone that you would think has their guard up, being a decent sized celebrity name like Matthew McConaughey or William H. Macy.
So when you were looking for guests initially, was there any idea of we're looking for people that were whiskey enthusiasts, or you were just looking for names and people that wanted to talk that were a celebrity, either A, B, C, D, or F level celebrity that happened to be like, hey, the whiskey happens to be part of it? Or were you looking for people to come in and really talk about the spirits? Or did it, one of these things with the bottle just kind of happen to be there and the conversation would go wherever it wanted to go?
Yeah, so the tagline of the show is spirited conversations with interesting people. It's always been about just talking to interesting people.
That's cool.
I mean truly interesting. And to give you an idea, Dolph Lundgren being a celebrity in the 80s and 90s during the Schwarzenegger era, that was a fascinating conversation for me.
You talked to He-Man. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it was just it's fascinating to talk to people who've lived interesting lives, and of course some of these celebrity names, they had to have an interesting life. It's they're interesting by nature. So and there are many that don't drink. The Ray Fisher episode that we just did with the guy from Justice League, his publicist did not tell him what the show was.
Oh wow.
So when he showed up and saw a table full of booze, he was like, I'm about to go meet a bunch of kids, I can't. And I was like, that's fine, that's not really about the booze. So
wow.
Yeah, it just slowly evolved. I mean, don't get me wrong. Some episodes are like pulling teeth. There's certain,
I know the feeling.
Yeah. Nico's been on the show, so
right.
pulling teeth.
Yeah, Dolph. He's talking about Dolph Lundgren and Matthew McConaughey. I think I ended up. Who was I with? The Brown Foreman rep. It was me and the Brown Foreman rep just hanging out.
Look at yeah. And we used to do a lot of brand interviews, and I've talked to a few people about it. That over time, brands that would do a podcast have pretty much had the same conversation 1,000 times,
right?
On 1,000 different podcasts. This is my Old Forester 100 proof. Okay, we know the brand very well. Everything's out there about it. So we've slowly pulled more towards conversations that are a bit more natural.
Yeah. I mean, you obviously have had whiskey, so I was looking at some of the people that you've had on the show that we've had on our show, whether it was Robert Licorice or Randy Sullivan and stuff. So there have been just whiskey focused episodes as well, correct?
Yeah. But the difference with, so yes, to answer your question, yes, but I think it was during COVID, we pulled away from doing a lot of brand interviews.
Right.
But I know Nico, I know Robert, I know Randy, like family. I don't know if they feel the same way, but the family that I like. So it's easy to have a conversation with these people.
That's awesome. And congratulations, as I've gone through and you just watch the views and the level of, celebrity.
Yeah,
absolutely.
frankly, yeah.
That's been able to get on the show. I guess that makes it probably a lot easier for you now when it's trying to secure somebody versus what it was early on.
Yeah. I think it's funny. Ali Sadiq, a stand-up comic who did the show a couple of weeks ago, he mentions at the end that a lot of times people will reach out to publicists and immediately give a celebrity list of who's been on the show. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, I did that. Yes, of course. Like whenever we reach out to people, they want to know numbers and stats and listening time and, who we had on before that said yes. So it has made it easier, but it's also been hard. I'm very supportive, or at least I strive to be supportive of women in whiskey. Mm-hmm. And when you say ESPN, so we get criticized for not having enough women on, but I've approached every woman celebrity you could possibly imagine that is fascinating and down to earth, be interesting. And it's difficult at times, especially when you say ESPN and whiskey. They just think of some, bald 30-something white guy.
So that makes me think there's got to be some women celebrities, or not just celebrities, obviously interesting people that are also whiskey enthusiasts. Obviously, they don't make that list of what do all these celebrities drink. But my thought would be there's got to be, I know just as many women that are passionate. Again, I know the show's not about necessarily the whiskey, but you would think that there would be a list out there of somewhere of women in whiskey that would totally be down to, sip with you over and have a conversation over a glass or two.
So there's been a couple of, that old saying, shoot or shoot. There's been a couple of women that I've reached out to, just celebrities in general, that I was like, if I don't ask, they can't tell me no.
Right.
So I should at least ask. And I actually went through the first 2 rounds so whenever you're a major politician, they usually have several different PR people that have to run through things. And I got real close to Michelle Obama once. And I was like, it would be great.
Wow.
It would be great. I mean, of course, it would be an honor to sit down with anyone presidential or, everything she's accomplished. But I would avoid politics altogether. Like I would love to sit down with Lena Hidalgo, who's the county judge here in Houston, that had to make the judgment call at 28 years old on what to do with the entire county of Houston during COVID. Mm-hmm. Like she became the county judge before she was 30.
Wow.
She was doing everything she could to make the right decisions, but she was like demonized and politics get all crazy. I would love to just have a beer with her and just be like have a human conversation with someone who's still a person. Like she's, you know what I mean? So if I ever got Michelle Obama on or anyone major in the space, I don't think I'd even discuss politics as much as like try to humanize them.
Their day-to-day, things outside of what they're known for. Because again, kind of like what you said about the brands, you could probably find a lot of interviews where they're all being asked the same things over and over again, and you get an opportunity to sit down and just have a conversation with a human being, regardless of what their platform is. That sounds way more interesting to me as well.
So other than Pauly Shore, is there anybody that you particularly enjoyed?
So Pauly made me laugh. I will say TJ made me laugh a lot, but that was really early on. Like the fact that TJ said yes that one time was pretty surprising.
Was this like in the middle of Silicon Valley stuff?
This was right after Silicon Valley. This was in the middle of him getting in trouble with the FBI. We couldn't even film the episode.
Wait, who is this? I missed this.
This is TJ Miller from Silicon Valley.
Okay.
Yeah.
TJ Miller, great comedian, super vaudevillian style performance, which is a really great art form nowadays, to be able to pull that off successfully. He even juggles at one point, but he was in the middle of what he refers to as a disagreement with the federal government over a bomb threat issue. There was I don't know the whole story.
It's a way to downplay that. Just a disagreement.
What a perfect time to do radio interviews.
Yeah. Well, radio interviews over drinking. So if you Google TJ Miller bomb threat, it'll kind of explain it. But we weren't allowed to actually film the visual portion of that episode. But it was a barrel of laughs. We had a good time. But you get hit with curveballs sometimes, and honestly, there's nothing you can do about it. You have to roll with whatever punch happens. I mean, the Office guys, as much as I love them, they thought. There's a general consensus now in our drinking culture. People have no idea that there are people like Nico and myself and HBS and Someone Say Whiskey, where they literally will sip, taste, enjoy, educate, learn. They're not taking shots. They're not getting hammered. A lot of people think of us as, when they said yes to the show, they thought it was like a shots, like we're doing Fireball or something.
Right.
So when they showed up for the interview, Kate goes, I know you were hoping for an hour. I can only do 10 minutes. We can't get hammered. I'm like, that's not what the show is.
Right.
Like,
they're thinking it's like Drunk History. What's that show where
Right.
it's just
Drunk
now,
History.
I will be honest, this show has turned into that on a couple of occasions
Only
unintentionally,
twice.
but you
Only
know,
twice.
you get rolling, you keep tasting. So I guess that was my next question is, has anybody ever got inebriated on the show or looked back and said, hey, please don't air what I said after the third drink or anything like that that's come up?
Yeah. So, well, one time I expected them to fully ask me to remove some things and they didn't. And that was Dolph Lundgren, where he told me about he's from Austria or Sweden or one of those countries with, great credit scores. And he told the story about the first time him and his sister ever saw a black person. And I looked at his publicist like, do you want me to cut that? And he goes, it's fine. Who cares? And then this is like right after Aquaman. So he was in Aquaman. And then he tells a story about the AIDS epidemic in the 80s. And I was like, do you want me to cut that? And they're like, no, it's fine. So there's been times where I expected them to cut it out. And then, of course, the opposite. So Anthony Starr, who plays Homelander on The Boys, on Amazon Prime, The Boys, great show. He got a little inebriated and said we had a great time, shook hands, left the place where we were shooting, and within 3 minutes his publicist called me. So he must have immediately left, called his publicist, told her he's worried that he might have said something either too political or nervous about the interview because he had been drinking. And so we let them watch the interview before we aired it. And you do this long enough, you know what to cut out, and just to save face and prevent any long-term issues. Because here's the thing, there are thousands of celebrities, A, B, C, D, E, F, whatever level of celebrity you want, but it's all pretty much the same 24 publicists. Like, it's all the same publicist company. So if you burn a bridge for an interview,
that's 10% of your options moving forward. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, the company that handles, I can't remember off the top of my head, but the company that handled Coleman Domingo, as well as Coleman Domingo from The Walking Dead or Fear the Walking Dead, and Anthony Starr with the same exact publicist. Like, she set it up with both people for that string of interviews. And William H. Macy was the same as the guys from Workaholic. So it was like this. It's the same. So you have to make sure you take care of them and not, gotcha journalism isn't going to get you far in a whiskey show.
No, but I think that probably works both ways, because you take care of their clients. There's your next in for the next person as well. And so I'm sure that works both directions. Or even, I guess, I don't know if this is something you talk about up front of saying, yes, there's the option to have cocktails or drinks, over this. We will give you guys first right to make sure we review this before anything goes public. Because then it's just a safe space where everybody can kind of exhale, because they know, even if they have a few, they're at least, the publicist or the celebrity or the guest or whoever also gets to make sure that everything's on the up and up before it goes to the public.
Have you had one pulled?
It's funny you say that. So it's a great question.
You're not at liberty to speak about it?
Yeah, no. So we had a brand that tried to pull an episode, and I was like, you're not a sponsor. This is a brand interview. There was never an agreement. What we tell people going into an interview is, if there's anything you want cut, tell us when it's happening. It's not live. Like, we're going to edit it. We're going to clean it up for radio if there's a lot of F-bombs. So tell us live. There was a big brand, a brand that I love and that I continue to work with, but they had made some comment about specs. And nothing necessarily negative, but specs might take it that way. And for those who don't know, the retail game, especially in liquor stores, is very emotional. You have to be careful not to hurt anyone's feelings. And
everyone's delicate flowers in the retail game and the distribution.
Some of these retailers are vindictive. They'll move all your stuff to the bottom shelf and your sales will drop automatically. So Yeah, she tried to get it pulled, and I was like, it's too late. Like, we've already edited it. There's not enough time to edit it. It literally airs in 4 hours. It's too late. You waited too late. You should have said something. Vice versa, we do lead into the interview with some celebrity names where we tell them, like, we can tell us what you don't want to talk about, or if it's happening, just say you don't want to answer it. And there were things about William H. Macy, like, I don't know if you know the college scandal, but his wife was pretty heavily involved with the college scandal. Said, don't bring it up. And I said, okay, fine. And Katie Sackhoff from Star Wars, she goes, don't talk about the Gina Carano thing. And I don't know if you guys saw that, but
the Mandalorian.
Yeah, Gina Carano made some political statements about COVID in Germany or something. And Katie Sackhoff was like, look, don't ask me about it. I don't want to get in trouble.
Right.
And there's a lot developing in the Mandalorian universe where I think she's going to get her own spinoff show. I don't know if that's public yet, but I think it may happen. There's been obviously a lot of rumors around it. And yeah, so we can avoid anything we need to, but no, there's not been an official episode pulled.
Yet.
Well, that's cool, man. Well, congratulations. Like we can only aspire to ever have the success that you've had with this. And I love the way that it really came from like a passion project that's continued to grow. I mean, I know for us with this, and Nico and I, know each other for 20 something years, and knowing that his passion for Texas whiskey, I came into this thing not knowing a whole lot about spirits outside of the fact that I like to drink them. And I've learned so much. Like, this has been such a cool experience for us. So for you to be able to take something that you were passionate about, this idea of amazing conversations over spirits, and this continues to grow, that's got to feel awesome. So how long has the show been running for?
We're coming up on 4 years in March, so we're 3.5, give or take. Probably, I guess we're 5 months away from little over 3 years and 7 months.
Man, congratulations! So I didn't even ask you this. So do you and Nico know each other because of the show or because of the Houston Whiskey Social? As I segue,
I've never been to the social. This is my first year.
Oh,
this is the first time I'm coming.
Nico, Nico's a little, he's hard to get a hold of. He's the.
Oh I know, God. Man.
Oh
he's all things Texas whiskey. Like the line forms to the left, Chris.
But I think Nico and I met first through my show. Okay. I think.
And was that because of the cocktail book?
Yeah, the cocktail book.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's your plug, Nico.
Thanks.
We've kept in touch. We're both very active on Facebook, and there was a couple of things. I think either Nico asked me one year to speak at not Tales, but San Antonio Cocktail Conference.
Mm-hmm.
And so we are in each other's space quite a bit. And of course, we were at Discus this past 2 weeks ago now.
Very cool. Well, then since Nico hasn't been before, tell me more about the Houston Whiskey Social and its origins and kind of your role with that as well.
Yeah, so 6 years ago, actually it's closer to, it's 2015, October 2015, so exactly 6 years ago, yeah. We have been going to these events. There's a bunch of them. Whiskeys of the World was one. A lot of consumer events, the Whiskey Extravaganza. There's these big festivals in Texas that we had a great time as consumers, but the events kept getting smaller and smaller, and less brands were going. And they within 2 years, the Texas spirit scene was belly up. So, and at the time, if you talked about Coney's, a lot of Texas spirits don't get a lot of love south of Austin. The Austin and Dallas has been much more supportive, I think, of Texas brands. So we got with all the brands. We asked them what they hated about these events, and we fixed it. So we started the Whiskey Social 6 years ago. This the 6th annual event happens on November 6th in about 3 weeks. And as of now, we are the biggest event in the state, and the only one that actually has a provable ROI, as far as I know, unless anyone can correct me on that. But we 1,500 to 2,000 people this year.
That's yeah. I was looking again on your YouTube channel. I was looking kind of at highlights of last ones, and it looks like this massive event. But I want to go back to what you just said about Texas spirits not getting a lot of love. You were saying south of Austin or stuff, but the Houston Whiskey Social isn't just it's not just Texas spirits there, though, is it correct?
Correct. I guess what I was really trying to highlight was that Houston just wasn't a good scene, period. So the events were falling flat. They were fundamentally failing. And all of those events are all gone. I know even Whiskeys of the World's not coming back to Houston this year.
Wow.
It was something that we were trying to fix. So across the board, whether it's events or Texas whiskey, the support just wasn't. I don't know what it is. If you talked about Balcones, even now they struggle in the Houston market with sales compared to everywhere else in the state. Dallas has a tremendous amount of support. I mean, you've got Dr. Nico Martini blowing up the Texas whiskey scene. And so we started the event. We even, at the event, we have a mini Texas whiskey trail. So there's a whole room dedicated just to Texas spirits. And if you are a Texas Trail member, you can literally, instead of having to travel all over the state at the event, you can go and you can check in at each one of the Texas distilleries that are at the event and get your credit for.
Oh, that's really cool. So I'm
cool.
planning to attend with Nico. He doesn't know this. I'm just going to tag along and tell him I'd carry books or pass them out or something along those lines.
That's good.
And but that's cool. So I was going to ask. So as a trail member, so that's pretty awesome. So what's the percentage of Texas spirits to non-Texas spirits? So you said 2,000 people. It looks like this giant. Obviously, there's more than one room. I just thought it was one big room, but now you're saying that Texas spirits has its own room. So what do you feel like the percentage is as far as what you're highlighting from Texas and what you're highlighting outside of the state?
So there is 3 ballrooms at this place, collectively a little over 16,000 square feet. The main ballroom is all whiskeys. Even if you are in Texas, but you're not a part of the Texas Whiskey Trail, you'd be in the main ballroom.
Mm-hmm.
The Texas Whiskey Trail is in the medium-sized ballroom. It's about 3,000 square feet. All of the certified Texas grain to glass distilleries are in that room, and you can only be in that room if you are a certified Texas whiskey. And that room, I would say probably 20 vendors and collectively probably 70 to 100 different bottles.
Wow.
In that room. So, a distiller may bring 3 or 4 expressions. Sometimes they might bring 15.
That's amazing. It kind of reminds me of when we went down for the Texas Whiskey Festival, and I didn't realize, this was months ago now. But once we went into the room and saw who was all represented, and this was early on in the show, I was just overwhelmed by the amount that there was in that room, and that was all just Texas spirits as well.
Yeah. No, I mean it goes back to working on the book. I mean, like the fact of the matter is, I know of 12 distilleries right now that within a year they could totally be in this book,
right?
And they're on their way. Like Texas whiskey hasn't even remotely peaked.
Oh,
like
absolutely.
At all. We're
oh no,
very much going
I mean,
up.
there's I'll say I'm not supposed to say this, so let me shape it in a way that's just elusive enough. There is a Texas distillery, a very well-known Texas distillery, who by definition, by sales, number of barrels sold, and price per bottle, that is blowing a Kentucky legacy distiller out of the water in terms of their private barrel program.
Wow.
So for Texas to have a distiller, and I'll tell you off air, Nico, I think you're going to love it.
Okay.
It's for a Texas distillery to have a more popular, sell more barrels, more expensive per bottle than a legacy Kentucky distillery is saying something.
No doubt.
So Texas has not even remotely begun to peak.
So, okay. So I'm going to follow up with that. When we were at the Texas Whiskey Festival, the thing I kept hearing over and over and over again, as I walk in, I didn't realize I was walking with a celebrity, and everybody freaks out when Nico shows up. But
I hate both of you. Just to put that on the record, I hate both of you.
But what I kept hearing from everybody that obviously had been very involved with this community for a while was kind of like, this is the year, was it's looking at that hockey stick, momentum jump. And so in 6 years of doing this, what's been your observations as far as, obviously you're having things outside of, a lot of spirits, more maybe well-known nationally spirits outside of Texas at your event. What do you feel as you've watched Texas whiskey specifically over the last 6 years and its momentum grow? Like, what do you feel like the opinion of it is, both inside and outside of the state?
Well, I think it's grown quite a bit. I think it's more than reasonable to make the statement that across the board, Texas has gotten better and better and better. I'm on the phone, buddy, of my son. I mean, everyone's figured it out. I mean, at first they were all doing, very rough cut pot distillation in really small 5-gallon barrels. And now the state collectively has figured out we should be going bigger in terms of barrels. And the vast majority of them are now using either full-size barrels, and some of them are even going bigger than that. I mean, Balcones is exclusively, the statement is paraphrasing because I might be technically wrong, but I think they're exclusively 60-gallon French oak now.
Oh wow!
For their first barrel. So they're realizing that the climate here is so tannic and so hot and humid that instead of these small barrels that age so fast and are rough and are shortcut, let's go bigger. Because for just a few years ago, you used to say that you would never see a 10-year-old bourbon come out of Texas, and that's bullshit. Wait, can I cuss on this show?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Fucking
at least this far into the show. Usually we've had more to drink by now. So
yep.
Yeah, it's nonsense. The idea that you're not going to have a 10-year-old bourbon in Texas is fundamentally dumb to say that, and it's being proven wrong. I mean, I've had a couple of barrels. There's a barrel at Balcones that's 9 years old, and plenty full. It's not going to be bone dry. So I think this idea, a lot of early on, a lot of catchphrasey type things were said. Oh, it's the climate. Oh, it's this. We're never going to see this. We're never going to see that. And a lot of it's being proven wrong by the people who are doing it best. I mean, Iron Root, Lone Elm, Balcones, Garrison Brothers. Garrison Brothers has seen explosive growth. And for a while, they were, controversial because of their price, but it's working. Like everything they're doing is working. And the best liquid that Garrison Brothers has ever made is coming out now. Like it's continually better than it was before.
It always amuses me when somebody complains about Texas whiskey. First of all, lumping everything together. Second of all, complaining about Texas whiskey in general. And I'll follow up with, well, when's the last time you had it? I don't know. I had tried it 5 or 6 years ago. Okay. Cool, man. You should try something that came out in the last 3 months.
Right.
Because it's a different ballgame entirely.
Well, I think asking him half of where it came from is what did you have? Because this idea of, and I joke with this with my buddies all the time, people outside of Texas that make some comment. And I'm like, so a state you can drive 12 hours in, you're going to lump all the whiskey in that entire state into, one category, as well as far as different climates or all the different ways, the different varieties that are here in the state as well.
Yeah, I think sorry, could you hear that?
Oh, yes, it was great.
No, this idea, I mean, originally everyone had a pot stove. Everyone thought pot stove was the way to go. And the most trendy, not trendy in a negative way, but the most recent cultish development is that bottle sitting in front of you. Still Austin is all column still, which is closely, in terms of distillation practices, it's the closest thing to Kentucky's processes. And Still Austin, I think, is creating, literally some of the best liquid in the state right now that everyone's changing people's minds on Texas whiskey. And no one was really talking about that just a couple of years ago.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And I love the fact that you have, with the event, and I'm really excited to come experience it. Obviously you're going to experience it for the first time.
Yeah, I can't wait.
As well. But something that does represent both insight. I was asking, Nico the same thing when he just went to, it was the Kentucky Bourbon Festival recently. And I was like, I'm interested in the conversations happening inside the state. I'm almost more interested because I have family in Kentucky. I'm almost more interested in the conversations that are happening outside of the state.
I will
about
say
the state.
About outside of the state, about Texas whiskey.
I will say, and this is a little self-serving, but this is the example that I have. I had bottles of Grayson with me when I went to Kentucky, and I probably tasted 5 or 6 people on it, and basically every single one of them were like, what? No, this is from Texas? I'm like, yeah, man. Yeah, this is from Texas. This is what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of Grayson, I got just the last few drops of my bottle
there
here.
it is.
Yeah. The state has developed so much in such the right way that it's really exciting to see what's going to be happening over the next couple of years. I mean, me and Nico talk about it quite a bit, and him and his partners are working on some of the best, most fun projects I've seen come out of the state in a while. And of course, back to Jake. Jake helped change the game over the Texas Whiskey Festival. Jake was the first person I've ever seen convince 3-4 major distilleries in the state of Texas to work together to create their own private blend for a festival. Like that's an incredible endeavor that wasn't possible just a few years ago.
Well, and I feel like the thing that keeps coming up on the show every time we have someone is this idea of this collaborative spirit inside the state as well. Like this whole idea that everybody's rooting each other on. I'm sure there's some very healthy competition going on, but every time we have somebody here from a distillery, we don't prompt them. They're heaping praises on their counterparts here in the state. And I feel like that's really rare when you have an area all rooting for each other, to just puff up, the state, as a whole.
Yeah, I think, fundamentally, they're competitors, but they're not, you would never know that. And that it's so crazy to me how we all are working together to enrich the entire state in the least competitive way possible. It's really unique to Texas, and I think it's mentioned in Nico's book on more than one occasion.
It's shocking that there are. It's shocking that we are as collaborative as we are down here, and it's shocking that everyone kind of doing whiskey in this state has either independently or been convinced by their brothers who are also doing whiskey,
right?
That literally the pie is big enough, and
everybody can win.
Everybody can win, and we'll all win way faster if we work together.
Well, since Nico got a way to shoehorn his spirit into this show, I would love for you to have the opportunity to tell us a little bit about Gregarious. Is it Gregarious Grump? Did I pronounce that correctly?
Grump. Yeah,
Grump.
It's a silly and ridiculous name, but it's born from love. So so we started doing spirits for our event right before COVID. Like, it had been in the works for a while. Similar to what Jake did, but we wanted to do it ourselves. And so we own the product. And so we started bottling spirits with Iron Root, great family. A fun fact, it actually hurt some people's feelings that I didn't use a Houston distillery to work with. And I was like, if I'm going to work with anybody, the licorices are the way to go.
Nico felt the same way.
I know the feeling.
Yeah. So we started bottling spirits, and then Gulf Coast came along and they wanted to work together. And so they purchased 40%, almost half of Gregarious Grump, and we're scaling up production. So we should see our stuff into 10 new states by the end of this year. And we, as far as I know, are the least expensive independent bottler of some super high-end rums and cognac. It's just been fun. It's exactly what Nico does. It's exactly what anyone's ever hoped to do, travel and taste liquid and find the good stuff and go from there.
Why did it end up being rum?
It started with rum because I could not convince, I'm working on it still, but I could not convince Scotch distillers to sell me some whole barrels because they wanted their liquid to be called Scotch. And if it's bottled here, it can't be called Scotch. And I think in their minds, it seemed less than to not give it that name.
That's awesome. Okay, so as, again, doing my research, this is the first time we're getting to meet each other. I'm looking at your your Instagram handle, which is Whiskey Pete. I love the fact that you have merchandise and you've created a character through all of this. Explain the part as the goat herder for the Prideful Goat.
Yeah. So this is how the partnership with Carlos happened with Gregarious. So Randall Sullivan, who's been on your show, great guy, good friend. Randy came down for an interview and convinced Carlos, found out that Carlos had some old liquid, and convinced Carlos to let us do a barrel selection of it. So he was going to do a barrel selection, I was going to do a barrel selection, and then it evolved into let's start a brand. And so me and Randy are the brand directors of the Prideful Goat. We're responsible for what goes in the bottle, the package design, new state distribution. All of those things are handled by me and Randy. And yeah, it evolved into a partnership with Carlos, and it was so successful. In fact, it's the most successful thing they've done. That led to him jumping on board with Gregarious and helping me grow my brand, and it slowly evolved. So the goat thing was supposed to be something lighthearted, but I think some people assume when you put the word goat that it's a braggart statement of being the greatest of all time.
Right.
Yeah.
You're the Tom Brady of whiskeys all of a sudden, and right.
Yeah, it was the opposite. The idea was to not take yourself too seriously. There's actually quite a few people who started brands using the same liquid from the same source, and their bottles are like $300 a bottle. Wow. One out of California is called like Ezekiel's Hammer, and there's
wow.
And there's this real trumped up story about with Bible verses, and God gave Ezekiel a hammer to build a blah blah blah, and it's just source liquid. Like there's no reason to give the BS story. Just be honest, be transparent, and don't let it be a money grab.
Can you please do like a small run that's just like named Thor AF or something along those lines? That's just a direct shot.
Yeah, I actually had an idea for a vodka brand that I think would get a lot of attention. It's a picture of Satan and a chicken, and it would be called.
Go ahead, you can curse.
Satan's cock vodka. It would be something that would be so off the wall and so offensive, so absurd. But you could legally allow it if you had the picture of the chicken, because then the chicken would be the. So it would be something. It was like a stupid drunk, like funny thing that came up over a couple of drinks. But
when do you release?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
we'll have you back on the show to talk about that.
You can go to your Total Wine, local Total Wine.
So when we created the goat, there's like some story that starts off at the top of the bottle. It's like from the highest Rocky Mountain to the deepest valley. It starts off as one of those trumped up stories, then it's just like, don't take yourself too seriously. This was picked from a little help from the herd, which was some people of HBS. And someone say whiskey, the Houston Bourbon Society, we invited them to help us pick the first two batches of the Prideful Goat. So it just became this, lighthearted, fun thing we did together.
That's awesome. And I love this. And so it does not surprise me that you and Nico are kindred spirits and buddies, because I hear the same things with both of
There's
you.
There's a lot of similarities.
There's a lot of similarities, and I love the fact that this has continued to grow and it continues to give you new platforms, and just the heart in which, no pun intended, God dog it, which you do things is obviously just coming from a passion project, and it's continued to open doors for you and just ways to continue to really serve other people, and spread the word of being able to, not just in Texas, but obviously, with the show, with the event and stuff, just continue to be a champion of what this thing is and what we all love. So congratulations.
So real quick. So Chris has an essay in the whiskey book, and like we haven't even talked about anything that has anything to do with what the actual essay was or is in the whiskey book. And so just like, man, we were having a discussion pre-show. We're like, okay, all right, what are we going to cover? And it was just like, man, there's
Nico joked about if he could quickly put a topic wheel that we could spin with you, because there were so many different directions we could go with the interview, you know?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
you started the interview off by mentioning that there's so much we could talk about, and you're right. I went to a family reunion for the first time in 15 years this past weekend, and my grandfather asked me what I was doing, and I didn't know how to say it in less than a paragraph, right? With everything happening in HBS and the independent bottling projects and the Whiskey Social, and I took over as director of brand development for Gulf Coast on all their projects, not just my stuff that I own.
Wow, that's awesome.
And it's many hats. But I mean, it's no different. Nico's, you're just as busy, man. You're all over the place. You're written you're a freaking novelist. You've written 2 books. Like that's insane.
Yes, but I haven't.
He has to finish the trilogy at some point.
And I've never interviewed Dolph Lundgren. Okay.
Or Pauly Shore.
Or Pauly Shore, frankly. I have interviewed John Leguizamo, though. That was fantastic.
There's people that I really, it's interesting. You expect some celebrities to say no, but I'm always caught off guard when someone like Kevin Sorbo asked for money. And I was like,
did you
all
give
right,
it to
Hercules?
him?
Like, no, I'm not, we don't pay for interviews, and I'm definitely not paying from 1990s Hercules.
You also learn which celebrities have done well with their money and which did not do well with their money. Therefore, this is what they're trying to do for money.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm always caught off guard with those who say no. Sometimes I'm like, I'm happy to sit down with them, and I'd love to talk to Kevin Sorbo, but like, also, I'm not going to pay you $10,000 to do my show.
His keynote fee or something like that.
I feel like you're sitting on a tater sticker opportunity to just have a series of all of the people who've said no.
That would be really fun, except you'd be using their likeness to sell bottles, and that might be a slippery slope.
Yeah, there's a lot of liability there, I'm sure.
Okay.
Dude, Chris, obviously, like Nico said, we could do a whole other episode, and we'd love to have you on sometime again. I look forward to meeting you in, what do we got, a couple weeks now before we come down to the Houston Whiskey Social? What is that, November 6th?
Yeah. November 6th, you can get tickets at HoustonWhiskeySocial.com. I'm happy to throw you guys a couple of tickets. I'd just love to have you down. When things I get so much anxiety building up to the event that I feel a bit overwhelmed, but I feel like right after I can breathe. So
yeah,
you guys should come down for a couple days. And I'd love to meet you and get to know you guys, have a few drinks. And of course, I'd love your feedback on the event. Nico's got a lot of experience that I could definitely benefit from. And I think it would be, all I want to do is, and it's been this way from the very beginning, is Houston has an incredible scene. And I just want to showcase that. The 3rd largest city in the U.S. should have its festival. It should be a good one. If there's anything wrong with it, I want to fix it. And of course, the independent bottling, there's not that many in Texas that are doing these things. So it's just bringing cool stuff to Houston, and it's what it's about,
That's awesome. So is the best way, if people are just learning about you, the best way to find you, Instagram at Whiskey Pete? What's the best way for people to, discover you, the show, everything that you're doing right now?
Yeah. You can, the Instagram's Whiskey Pete without the E, Whiskey without the E, Pete, P-E-T-E. And then you can check out the show on ESPN 97.5 in Houston and all your podcasting platforms. And of course, YouTube as well. Whiskey Neat. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Tickets at HoustonWhiskeySocial.com. The event's November 6th. That's it. Yeah.
That's awesome. So in other words, Chris is everywhere. If you can't find him, it's your fault.
I feel like I want to run to Instagram right now and grab the handle Whiskey Pete with an E and
I'm sure it was there.
P-E-A-T.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I think that's already a thing.
Oh, it is?
I've noticed over the past few years, anyone with any variation of Whiskey Pete is currently following me.
That's interesting.
I think there's one guy in Australia with 60,000 followers that he goes by Whiskey Pete. His name is Pete. My name's not. And I just beat him before he grabbed it. And so his is Whiskey Pete with like an underscore after. Like
he hates you so
original,
much.
You know?
Oh, he hates you so much.
Yeah.
Man, thank you so much for coming on. We really, really appreciate it. And I cannot wait. I cannot wait to go to this event. Like I've been looking forward to this event ever since I heard about this event, and I haven't made it down in the past 3 years since I've known about it. Well, COVID, but
little things.
Yeah, I cannot wait to come down there.
Chris, this has been awesome. Thank you, man, and we appreciate you being on. And I look forward to this event. I love the fact that you're just trying to highlight, what we're doing in the state, outside the state, and then obviously for your city as well. That's awesome.
Well, I can't thank you guys enough for having me on. Sorry about the technical issues and my 4-year-old son being a 4-year-old son, but I really appreciate you guys having me.
Of course.
Let's absolutely do this again, because like we seriously only hit about a third of the topic
essay wheel. And we'll do that from there.
Yeah, we can talk about the essay.
Just let me know. I'd love to talk. I love talking whiskey. So
let's talk about this little brand that you're working with right now. I think we got a lot to talk about. Let's do this again.
Well, this guy over here, absolutely. Thank you. That guy over there, he's Texas Whiskey Book on Instagram, because if you actually go to Texas Whiskey, which I did, it's a guy named Andy.
So annoying.
With 2 posts, 0 followers, 0 following, and he hasn't posted anything since 2013.
Hate Andy. I hate Andy.
I know. We've been trying to reach out to Andy. That's Nico Martini. Follow him at Texas Whiskey Book. My name is Jimmy Hayes Nelson. You can follow me at the Coach Jimmy on Instagram. And until next time, folks, cheers y'all.